Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 271 of the Canadian Football Countdown, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network and the Alternative Football Network. Ryan and Adam here with you this evening. Adam back after a couple of weeks of hiatus for you. And we're here to preview week number 20 of the CFL season. 3 games on the schedule, and they all, well, not all of them, but some of them matter in some capacity. And we'll take that at this time of year. Yes, we have meaningful football to talk about in the final 2 weeks. Even in week 21, we'll have meaningful football to talk about thanks to some of the results of the last week. Very excited about that. We'll preview the 3 games, your storylines, fantasy players to watch, betting picks for each of them. We'll also take your comments and questions in the live chat. Thanks to presenting sponsor Game Time TV. Shout out to everybody joining us live here on this Thursday evening. And if instead of joining us live, you are choosing to watch the Thursday night NFL football game between the Denver Broncos and the New Orleans Saints, I'm no lawyer, but you might be eligible for compensation for the time of your life lost from that game. Adam, how are you doing this evening?
Doing good, doing very good. It's all because Alex Singleton isn't playing for the Broncos this week, right? Nah, you know what? Doing good. It's going to be probably an interesting week here. Got lots of things working on. Of course, working over at the rink a little bit here, trying to get things ready to go for hockey season. And yeah, it's been busy times. But you're right about the games meaning everything. Right up to the last buzzer, or the last flag, or the last whistle, it means something this year. So I hope Saskatchewan is planning something to go and watch the Montreal-Winnipeg game, the game before the Saskatchewan-Calgary game.
Oh, that's the best when you get to this time of year and when you get to the playoff games and like the West playoff game and they've got the East game on the Jumbotron pregame. Oh, that's so good. That's the best part. I love it. Yeah, all this to talk about. Presenting sponsor Game Time TV. I should finish off the ad read here. Learn more by visiting GameTimeTV.ca or Facebook.com/GameTimeTVMD. If you are joining us live tonight, good evening to you. Send in your comments and questions in the live chat. We'll take them throughout the evening as we talk about each of these games. We do want to acknowledge that the Canadian Football Countdown is brought to you from Treaty 1 territory, traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation, as well as from Treaty 4 territory, traditional territory of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Métis Nation. If you're looking for additional content, I'll do the weekly shout out to check out the Discord community. There's a link in the episode description. It's free to join us over there. We're constantly talking through all of the news around CFL. Lots of debate this week on what's going to happen at the quarterback position around the league. I think that's the biggest topic on everyone's mind, and we'll probably get into some of that as we discuss the quarterbacks expected to play in this week's games. Lots of NFL chat, CFL chatter going on there as well. My fantasy charts, as always, have had recent upgrades to them. I added 2 more charts again this week. And really, it's your go-to source for CFL fantasy. I'm 6-0 in fantasy matchups, Adam, since adding these new charts to the list. Getting hot at the right time.
Yeah, in certain leagues, it was just too little, too late.
Too little, too late in some of them. But yes, this is it. This is the big week for all the fantasy leagues we're playing in this week. In the Discord Fantasy League, it is down to yours truly, myself, against Charlie in the finals. Both of us with some upsets, knocking off the first 2 teams. I did beat Trey by 1.6 points. It was close. It was way too close. It came down to the Monday game. I think I had Fletcher and Montreal's defense against Pimpleton, and then Pimpleton gets a ton of targets at the end of the game. He had 12 targets on the day, but Montreal's defense picked up a couple of sacks on the final drive to get the job done. So I did beat Trey. He's unfortunately not feeling well tonight, so hope he feels better soon, which is why he's not here. But I'm off to the finals in the Discord League and very excited for a good matchup there. And then I'm also off to the finals in the CFL Podcast Fantasy League for the second straight year. Chance to defend my title there, going against Oz Davis from the Rouge, White, and Blue podcast. And winner of that league takes home $280 for the charity of their choice. So a little bit of extra pressure to take that one home for the second year in a row.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you already have chosen your charity, I'm sure, by now. Right?
Yeah, I mean, not 100%, but there's a lot of great initiatives out there, and it's kind of like I wish I could help more of them with it, but I won't announce it for fear of letting them down if I lose.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we've got our private fantasy league, which comes to an end this weekend.
It does, yeah.
It's a battle for. I don't think there's a battle for anything in there anymore. Third place, I believe, is tied up already. I think second place is pretty well tied up already. And Ryan had to wave the flag because the previous champ was taken down, and the trophy will be coming west of the Manitoba-Saskatchewan border. I will have the new trophy, which I don't know what trophy I'm going to find, but I'll find something cool and put it up next week.
Yeah, I'm not shipping you anything, so
No.
there is no trophies.
Unless the West Final is in Winnipeg, I guess maybe I can come out and get my trophy.
But there is no trophy.
I was just randomly take something out of Ryan's house. Anyways, honestly though, I think I'm 200 points ahead right now, so I'm not sure if I'm going to dress a roster this week and just see if Ryan can actually still catch me. We'll see what happens.
I gotta hand it to you, Adam, for a guy whose team name in the draft was #Can'tBeWorse after your dismal showing last year where you had to redraft your team halfway through. Comeback player of the year, heck of a fantasy season. I mean, just the combo of, what was it, Justin Hardy, Reggie Bagleton. You traded for Brady Oliveira. You picked up Eugene Lewis. Your team is stacked. And they continued to deliver, and Tim White, and it was just, I was making the comeback. I felt like I was going to make the comeback, and at some point it was just like, Adam's putting up 100 points a week. There's no hope. There's none. So kudos to you. You get the theoretical trophy this year, unless I make that wild late game comeback, but I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think it will, but you never know, I suppose. But you know what? It was a good year. You got to be good to be lucky and lucky to be good, and in fantasy once in a while. And you know what? Everybody put a good effort in. It just happened to be my year for once.
And just be prepared. I'm coming back next year with a vengeance. As I loaded up my IR on the waiver wire this week with players that I can go and potentially use as keepers next year. All right, let's get into our first game of the week. We've got 3 on the schedule. The first one is a very important game for determining rosters for next year, ? It's the Calgary Stampeders visiting the Hamilton Tiger Cats. On Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Both of these teams out of the playoffs. The Ticats got eliminated on their bye week last week when the Argos upset the Bombers. Definitely not the result Ticats fans were looking for in that game. And, the hopes were slim. It was a little, they came on strong late in the season, but too little too late for the Ticats, it seems. 6-10 record on the year. They're going to miss the playoffs. And they face the Stampeders with a 4-11-1 record. Currently the front runners for the first overall pick. And I think a loss this week might guarantee that actually for them. Otherwise it could get close. Yes, otherwise I think they could catch Hamilton if they beat them this week. So I guess that's on the line this week. Depth charts are out for this game. Both teams seem to be playing most of their starters. On the Calgary side, Matt Schultz is getting his second straight start at quarterback. Jake Mayer is the backup. Newly signed PJ Walker, not on the active roster yet. On the Hamilton side, Bo Levi Mitchell gets the start still here for the Ticats. And Greg Bell at running back and James Butler back off the roster this week. What do you make of this? Meaningless game, as we talked about. You're playing for next year at this point. Seemingly both teams playing their starters. Do you agree with that, or what would you do with the roster for each team if you were coaching? Let's start on the Calgary side.
it don't matter if this game here was an irrelevant game or everybody, again, even I said it before the podcast was this is the irrelevance bowl, but to the players, not a chance. I mean, you look at a guy like Jake Mayer, for example, like you were talking with Calgary here, he eventually needs to be looking for a job. Same with Matt Schultz. It may not be in Calgary next year, depending on what happens here with this PJ Walker talk. Maybe Calgary gets the first overall pick and they trade it to BC for a certain other quarterback that we'll talk about later. You never know what can happen in the offseason. Players change places all the time. They're not looking for just maybe not looking for a contract with Calgary. Maybe they're looking for a contract with somebody else. But you still got to show that you want as much tape and as much film as you can to show that you're a great player on the field no matter what happens. I'm still going to look at, like, if I was the starting guy, I'm still looking for a job next year. Contracts other than the odd one, and maybe Jake Maris, I can't remember if that was a guaranteed contract. Most are not guaranteed a dime, right? I mean, They can cut you. Any team can cut you at any time and anywhere for any reason whatsoever, and you could be looking for a new job next year. So the more film you got, the more tape you got, the more plays you make, and the more big stuff that you can do on the field is just that much better. So, no, this game here, if you're Calgary, start the starters and get them going. And even for a guy like Coach Dickinson, who I'm sure is going to be on the hot seat at the end of this season because 4-11 is not a very acceptable record in Calgary. I'm sure he's playing for, again, to show that he's still a good coach in this league. So, yeah, go for it if you can.
Yeah, if you're Calgary, I believe do you have 2 games left? Yeah, they play Saskatchewan next week, right? In the season finale. I think what you do here, you've seen enough from Jake Mayer this year. Schultz got 1 game last week. Let's give him another one this week. And then I want to see PJ Walker starting in that season finale because this is a team that has the most uncertainty out of anybody, I think, at quarterback going into next season, in not a good way right now. It seems like Mayer being benched 2 weeks in a row, they kind of know what they have in him. Maybe they don't believe in him. Maybe they move on if they can in the offseason from one Jake Mayer. But Schultz, is he the guy? I don't know. He's been around the league for a while now, been that fringe starter type player. Do you finally give him the reins going into next year? I don't feel great about that as much as I'm a Matt Schultz fan. PJ Walker has that NFL experience, but we don't know what he's going to do in the CFL game yet. We always talk about these guys that are going to come in, and it's a whole different ball game. And there's talk that he fits more of the CFL mold, but I need to see it out on the field. And I don't know if that Week 21 game is going to be enough to determine that. I feel like we're, again, a little too late here for determining the path for the Stampeders. The obvious option everybody is talking about is go get Vernon Adams in the offseason. But when has Calgary spent big in free agency? Like, I have a really hard time seeing them go that route, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them say, we've got Walker on our roster and he's going to be our guy next year. That scares the heck out of me if I haven't seen him play very much here. So a little concerning to me for Calgary here down the stretch, but we'll see how that plays out for them. What about on the other side, on the Hamilton side? Bo Levi Mitchell getting the start here. I have so many thoughts on this, and I'm trying to make sense of them. And to me, it could be one of 2 things. I'm starting to question whether Taylor Powell is part of the future of this football team by the fact that they are not giving him the starts late in the season. Bo is getting up there in age. They tried to bench Bo earlier this season. We're all questioning how many years he has left in him. If you believe Taylor Powell is going to be your future guy, then you should start him late in the year when it doesn't matter anymore. So then that leads me to think Bo reasonably is the team's MOP nominee this year and might be an East MOP nominee. Are they continuing to play him out of respect to try to get him that nod here late in the season? Are they are they expecting to bring him back for another year next year? Does he have another strong year like this left in him and they build around him for next season? Are they one of the teams going after somebody out in free agency? All these questions are in my mind when I see this depth chart this week. What do you think about Hamilton's quarterback situation?
Well, I think, you know what? I think it's a very interesting one because Bo Levi Mitchell, I think, is at that point of his career where He needs a team in front of him that can win a Grey Cup and win a Grey Cup now. I don't think that Hamilton's that team anymore. They've had so much change in the whether it was the secondary with linebackers. I mean, they had Simone Lawrence and they had a few others that were in there that have moved on. Hamilton, again, their receiving core, other than Tim White, really needed some improvement this year. They've seen a little bit of relevance maybe in running back. I think Greg Bell did a great job of showing that he could be a impact player. Is James Butler back next year? He was kind of questioned. He can't be.
There's no way, but with the number of times he's been benched or air quotes injured late in the year, there's no way James Butler is coming back, especially at that price when Greg Bell has performed like he has.
That being said, I'm sure Greg Bell's on a 2-year contract, so if he is, then it's instant. You know what's going to happen. But Bo Levi Mitchell is very interesting. I still think that he won't be back in Hamilton next year. I can't see it. But I think he's going to be on a team that needs a quarterback that throws the ball well and still has that running thing with him. And I'll throw a bold prediction out there. Next year, the starting quarterback of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers is going to be Bo Levi Mitchell.
Ooh.
Because they are going all in for a Grey Cup.
That's a spot that I can't see it happening. And I don't want to talk about Winnipeg too much when they're on the bye. But Zach Collaros is under contract for another year. Mike O'Shea is loyal to his guys. He is. They're hosting the Grey Cup. Collaros has done enough to give them an 8-game win streak, even when he really hasn't done much at all. You know, they're going to see the results of that and see that they're close to hosting 4 straight West Finals or whatever it is, and they're going to bring him back to complete that run. And is it going to be the right decision? I don't know, but I can't see them moving on from him. I as much as I would like them to, I can't see it.
My prediction is that if they lose the game against Montreal, Saskatchewan somehow gets that West Final, I don't see Winnipeg's going to have fun with BC.
Yeah,
and I like I said, if all of a sudden Winnipeg loses the West Semi, I don't know. Like I said, Kyle Walters wants a Grey Cup next year in the worst way imaginable, and I think he'll do whatever it takes to get it. If he has to put a 1A, 1B with Collaros and Mitchell in there, he might do it. Honestly, I could see it. But anyways, let's get back to Hamilton.
Watch Bo go to Calgary now, back to Calgary next year.
Please, no. Oh, you never know, I guess. The CFL has gone crazier. Anyways, you know what? Hamilton there, they had a good run right at the end here. They should feel good about that part. But I don't know about this team. I don't think this team is built to really sustain winning, like a winning streak, like even getting a winning record. It just, they got to rebuild this team. It's been kind of the same core for a very long time in Hamilton. And I think Bo Levi Mitchell is one of those that might be part of the rebuilding process, whether they move on from him. I think he's a free agent again after this year.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so I think Bo is looking for a team that's going to win a Grey Cup now, and I don't know, to be honest, I just don't know if Hamilton is that team right now.
Impressively, Hamilton is pretty close to having 4 1,000-yard receivers. Tim White needs 2 yards. He should get that, I would hope, this week. Shamar Bridges was at 933. If he didn't get injured, he makes that, right? Yeah. Like, easily. Then you've got Stephen Dunbar at 833 and Keandre Smith at 809. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that either of those hits 1,000 with 2 games left. My money would be on Smith because he's been on more of a roll lately. But that's something we're definitely watching the final 2 weeks here is the 1,000-yard watch for some of these guys on Calgary, and Reggie Bagel didn't hit that this past week. Should we get into our fantasy players? I think it's about time to do so for this week. Again, big pressure, championship matchups. Got to get these picks right this week. Let's start on the Calgary side. Matt Schiltz started one game, looked okay. Last week, big thing was the rushing total, 90 rushing yards in his last 2 games for Matt Schiltz. You know, I love my mobile quarterbacks. That makes that pick tempting. I'm trying to pull up the site right now to see what is his price this week. It's got to be pretty cheap. It is $7,000. So $7,000 quarterback with a huge rushing ability. That is a potential play I think you could play this week. Again, PJ Walker is not on the roster. We've seen what we've seen from Jake Mayer. I would be shocked if Schultz does not play the entire game against Hamilton. That one feels safe for a quarterback play for me this week. I don't trust the running back split, though, between Dedrick Mills and Kylan Hill. I think Hill starts taking more and more there. It's not going to either. It's going to produce you a good week. But who will produce you a top-tier fantasy football week, regardless of anything, any factor, is Reggie Bagleton, which Adam knows well from his championship fantasy season this year. He was last week finished as a top 10 wide receiver yet again with Schultz at quarterback, and has put up 12 plus points in 8 of his last 9 games. That is the consistency you want to see. If that's your consistent floor and the potential he has, you like to see that. Another cheaper option if you like a Calgary receiver against this Hamilton defense is Jalen Philpott, who has 10 plus points in 6 of his last 8 and touchdowns in 2 of his last 3. It seems like he's kind of developing now into that number 2 receiver for the Stamps. They do have the toughest matchups in this game, though. The Ticats have allowed 0 touchdowns to Reggie Bagleton's position throughout this season and only 3 to Jalen Philpott. They don't really let you throw to the right side of the quarterback. They're more susceptible on the left, which is Cam Eccles and Mark and Michelle. So that's kind of the trade-off for me of, well, Hamilton's been, the matchup's not there, but these are the clear top options on the Stamps offense. And I think Bagleton is one of the few players that is completely matchup proof. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see the first touchdown given up to somebody in that slot. What do you got on the Calgary side?
On the Calgary side, the only one is Reggie Bagleton that I have. Yes, I know your chart tells me he won't get a touchdown. I challenge your chart because you know what? He's given me points all year. I know. Private fantasy, he's given me lots of points all year. He still seems to produce. And again, really in Calgary, he's been the guy. And I mean, not just a guy, the only guy that seems to get any amount of catches consistently with Calgary. So Reggie Bagleton is definitely on my list right now.
Let's move over to the Hamilton side. Bo Levi Mitchell, a little more expensive at quarterback, $13,500. I'm out. As much as I like how Bo has played this year, and him big game against Calgary would be fun to see. Will he play the full game? Will they give Powell some time in the second half potentially? I don't know. That worries me for the price. I think there's better options at quarterback available this week. Greg Bell, on the other hand, should be in every single fantasy lineup this week. And if he is not, like he should be 100% rostered. And it should be in strong consideration as a captain. He has averaged 20.2 fantasy points on the season. His lowest total on the year is 15.8. He's finished as a top 4 running back in every game, including 3 first-place finishes. James Butler's not on the active roster. Yes, Milanovic Litre is in there, but I don't think they rotate him in. I think they want to see what they can see from Bell, who is probably the future of this team at running back. And Greg Bell is a must start, especially against a Calgary defense that gives up the most rushing yards in the league to starting running backs. Dream matchup for Greg Bell. Of the Hamilton receivers, Stephen Dunbar has the juicy matchup here, but he's struggled 2 weeks in a row, including in a good matchup game, so I'm scared a little bit about that one. Keandre Smith, not as good of a matchup, except the Stamps do give up a decent number of touchdowns to the middle slot backs for the season. 6 touchdowns allowed to that position. So I think Keandre Smith, like I said, he has a potential. He's gotten a lot of targets lately. Could get a touchdown. Could be pushing for that 1,000-yard season in the final 2 weeks. It could be at play here. What about you on the Hamilton side?
The only guy I've got right now is, I've got 2. Obviously,
You better have Greg Bell.
Well, I have to have Greg Bell. I mean, literally the guy there has come on and just, he's probably my captain this week, to be honest. You're right. He's just that good. Usually you can't take anybody but a quarterback for your captain unless it's Greg Bell. You know what? The other one that I've got is Tim White. The reason being is last time he played Calgary, he had 11 targets against the Stamps. So they do like targeting that area of the field against the Stampeders. Didn't have 6 catches, 55 yards. That was when he was kind of in his kind of and average.
That was in week one.
It was week one in early Tim White. We all know late Tim White is better than early Tim White. So I'm going to go with Tim White this week. Got to try. I don't know. I think he's going to be better than he was. I wanted to pick up old Levi Mitchell so bad, but in another way, no, I just can't.
All right. The betting line on this game is at 4.5-point favorites for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Over-under is set at 51.5. Trey sent in his picks. He is taking the home team Hamilton to cover the spread here. Didn't give us picks for the over-under, but what are you taking for this game?
I'm going to take the Ticats. I think, you know what, right now they're probably the hotter team. They've been playing some good football. I mean, yes, they fell finally, and that was the end of the season for them, but they still got a lot of pride, and they want to go and leave their fans with a good impression. Hey, you're selling tickets for next year, too. So I'm going to go with the Ticats winning this one here outright at 4.5 or over 4.5. Over-under could be a gun show. Might not be. Calgary traditionally doesn't have very good luck rising to the occasion, and Hamilton, they kind of just beat teams at the last minute, it seems. So, you know what? I'm going to go with the under on this one. It's 51.5. Seems a little high. Give me the under. Give me the Ticats.
I'm just going to agree with you on both of these. I like Hamilton better at this point than I like Calgary. They've been the hot team lately, and their defense has stepped up really good down the stretch too. And I think they can do that against the Stamps again this week. Game number 2 this week is the most meaningful one for sure this week because it is a big battle for second place in the home playoff game out east. The Ottawa Red Blacks visiting the Toronto Argonauts. If you would have told me earlier on in the season that we'd be reaching this point where Toronto has moved into second in the East ahead of the Red Blacks, that was not the trend we were on early in the season. But Ottawa has really just lost any sort of mojo they had early on in this year. They've now lost, like 5 of their last 6 or something like that, 6 of their last 7, and a lot of those losses by double-digit points. I don't have it exactly in front of me there, but it hasn't been pretty for Ottawa recently. And Toronto's been kind of up and down and inconsistent. And last week they won, big win, 14-11 over Winnipeg. That felt more like it was Winnipeg mistakes than Toronto actually putting a good, at least offensive effort out there. So I don't know. Where do you want to start on dissecting this game?
Well, I think the first thing you got to look at is on the Ottawa side of the football. What is going on? And we've been talking lots of quarterback, and I apologize. I'm going to talk a little bit more of quarterback. Drew Brown is healthy, correct?
Yes, and he will be playing. He will be starting this week. He was not healthy the last couple of weeks, which is why he was at the third string and Mazzoli was starting. But this week he's been taking first team reps, and he said in practice this is the best he has felt in a while.
Okay, perfect. Because I was starting to wonder on that because Jeremiah Mazzoli has been starting, and again, you know what? I don't mind Jeremiah Mazzoli, but Drew Brown has had a pretty reasonably good season with the Ottawa Red Blacks, and especially he has that chemistry with a few of his receivers. And even though they've been rotating in and out the receiving core, because this team did have a lot of trouble with injuries in the receiving core, I think Ottawa has better luck when Drew Brown's in this game. The other thing to keep an eye on for the Ottawa team in this one is the defense. Last time, I think it was Damon Webb absolutely single-handedly beat the Toronto Argonauts. He had, 3 interceptions or 2 at least, 1 for 6. And Chad Kelly, it looked like almost right like the East Final last year. Chad Kelly didn't know what to do because he was just getting picked off all the time.
That was the last good game the Ottawa has played. The week before that, it was the stinker, the 38-12 loss to BC. Then they came back, pounded the Argos 41-27. It was closer in the end due to all the garbage time work from the Toronto offense. But since that last win, they have lost 4 straight games. They lost to the Ticats by 16, the Alouettes by 12, the Riders by 13, and then 19-12 against Montreal last week. The last 3 games, they haven't scored more than 16 points, and almost all of those have come from the leg of Lewis Ward. I think maybe they have 1 touchdown in the last 3 games, if I'm correct. Ottawa's offense, despite having the likes of Pimpleton and Hardy and LeBourne and all of these guys that are looking good, they can't finish drives at all, it seems. And that's been the real kryptonite of this team. So this is the true test of, like, can they get back on track here against the Argos where they had their last big game? Because if they can't, like, I am genuinely concerned about this team coming into the playoffs. I have no faith in them.
No, I don't either. And I mean, it seems like Coach Dice lately has been doing kind of what Saskatchewan was doing there during those 7 or 8 game losing streak. He's playing not to lose instead of playing to win.
Yeah.
And that doesn't ever work well. I don't care. You got to be a little bit aggressive. You got to show that you're going to fight for a little bit. 3rd and 1, I'm just going to kick it away. Okay. All of a sudden, Toronto gets the football and goes back to the other end for a touchdown. You know, it just seems like, again, very conservative play calling, very light offense. It just doesn't seem like there's really that big drive to push the ball down the field. Ottawa's been that team that just kind of is content with getting 3-4 yards here and then another 3-4 yards, and maybe once in a while go for 6 and, hey, we get a first down. Okay, we'll do it all over again. You don't see a lot of big plays out of Ottawa very often that I've always seen, and I think that's probably more of the play calling than anything, and that's on the offensive coordinator and maybe even on the head coach a little bit, not really opening up the ball for deep plays. That being said, I mean, Jeremiah Mazzoli's been in, so they haven't had their starting quarterback, so maybe you can give them a little bit of credit there because they're just trying to be a little more safe with Jeremiah Mazzoli in there. But in the end, you still got to win the football game, and it just seems like Ottawa lately, again, play not to lose is what it seems like.
Even in their wins early in the season, like, I constantly question it. Is like, am I believing in Ottawa right now? I don't know. Am I? Like, they won games, sure. They won games at home. Yes, they pulled out some victories, and victories are victories. But I had myself constantly questioning, is this team legit, and struggling to believe in them. And then now this stretch late in the season has me feeling like at this point in the year they're not, and they maybe played above their weight class, so to say, early on in the season. So I need to see a convincing effort from the Ottawa side here. Let's talk about the Toronto side of things. Just looking at their recent schedule, take out this last game against Winnipeg. That was a weird one. 14-11 game. It was weird all the way around. In their last 5 games before that, 31-28 loss to Hamilton, 41-27 loss to Ottawa, convincing 33-17 win over BC, then a 33-31 loss to Hamilton, and then a 37-31 win over the Alouettes. In those 4 games, they scored at least 27 points in each of them, and yet they had a 2-2 record in that game. So it seems no consistency from this team. They're putting points on the board, but they're not putting touchdowns, at least early on in the game. It seems a lot of Liram Haralahu carrying this team, and their defense making plays when they have to, but maybe not enough to always get it done. I don't know. How are you feeling about the Argos? If we're saying we don't have a ton of faith in the Red Blacks, these two teams are going to meet in the first round in the playoffs. Do you have confidence that Toronto's going to get the job done that day?
I don't know. I mean, I can't figure out what Toronto team this is. Is this the high potent offense like last year with Chad Kelly at the helm, and it didn't matter what receiver it was, if he's going to get some points? Or is this the Chad Kelly throwing a lot of interceptions and killing himself, and then his D is stretched out on the field forever? I don't know what this team is, to be honest with you. Just, you're right, inconsistency. There'll be times when Chad Kelly looks like a world beater again. Then the next time he's throwing, again, weird interceptions that really shouldn't be happening. And then all of a sudden, a receiver comes out of nowhere like Mackay Polk, who's just been absolutely dominating for the last few weeks. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, he'll disappear. And then, again, we've had Kadeem Carey at times this year look like he maybe should be considered for an MOP spot. Then all of a sudden, he disappears off the face of the earth too. So honestly, I don't know what to expect out of Toronto. Next thing I know, there'll be a 31 and Clemens in the backfield or something. And no, I'm kidding. That won't happen. Well, I never know. But like I said, it's just everything. It's a very strange team, Toronto, this year. And you know what? They could get on a 3-game winning streak, start a playoffs, win the Grey Cup. They could also be the team that's eliminated first by Ottawa by 41-17.
The topic is going to be talked to death when the playoffs comes of what kind of performance is Kelly going to deliver after what he did in the playoffs last year, right? In that game against Montreal, it's going to be talked to death, and it is a concern in the back of our minds. Definitely is what kind of performance is he going to give here and there. Any other topics on this game, or you want to get into fantasy?
I don't really have much else. I mean, this game is your game of the week because, I mean, it's the most implications. Well, the only one with implications, I suppose, other than who might be playing a game or something. But, yeah, honestly, let's get into fantasy because there ain't much else to talk about in this game. Even though, yeah, it's an important game and it should be a sellout in Toronto. Maybe a lot of Ottawa fans show up.
Well, it being the most meaningful game of the week means it's prime fantasy material because, the quarterbacks should be playing all game and everybody's going to be playing and putting in their best effort. I mean, not to say they're not going to put in their best effort, but you know what I mean. Speaking of the aforementioned Chad Kelly, I think he's one of the top quarterback options to consider this week. Even though that last game out against Ottawa is a little bit scary, what he did in that game, but it's a great matchup positionally overall. The Red Blacks defense is one of the worst against starting quarterbacks in the CFL. It's a meaningful game. Kelly's going to be in there all game. If he didn't get pulled last time against Ottawa with 4 picks in the first half before throwing 52 pass attempts, he's not going to get pulled in this game. I just don't see it happening. People might be down on his numbers from the last 2 games. He had 11 and 15 fantasy points, but those were against Montreal and Winnipeg, to the 2 top defenses in the CFL. Before that, he had 3 straight quarterback 1 performances, finishing as the top QB of the week. So yeah, I think Chad Kelly is going to return to form pretty well in this game. We talked about Kadeem Carey disappearing at times. That has happened quite a bit lately. Only 2 games in his last 7 have been over 10 points. And last week against Winnipeg, only 5 carries in that game. And it seemed like Deontay McMahon was actually getting in there for a little more work than we would have expected there. But you mentioned Mackay Polk, 12-plus points in 5 straight games, 80-plus yards in 4 of his last 5. He does, once again, have a tough matchup, and that's the theme of the week. All of the best players for fantasy, it seems, have tough matchups this week. The way you beat the Ottawa Red Blacks is with your wideouts, not your slot backs, according to the numbers so far this year. That happens to be DeMonte Coxie on the left, David Unger on the right. I'm not sold on either of them from performances lately. They've been a bit up and down. Coxie's been a disappointment. Unger did have a touchdown this past week, but doesn't get a ton of targets. So I don't know if I'm going to play any Toronto receiver. Maybe I chance it on Polk in the tough matchup there, or maybe you take the shot at the juicy matchup available with one of these underperforming guys. What do you have on the Toronto side?
I've got Mackay Polk without a question. Number 1 target. I could see it. He had 10 targets the first time he played Ottawa. If he would have got a couple more catches, he still had 80-plus yards. But if he would have got a few more catches, maybe another touchdown, he could have been just a world beater at that game. So I think they're going to target him quite a bit again. And this time here, I believe that there's some injuries over in the Ottawa defensive secondary that could cause there to be a lot more Mackay Polk showing up. And I do really think Chad Kelly is probably going to be a good option. Just because, again, you're right, 52 throws the last game that he played against Ottawa. It was utterly ridiculous. And, they didn't pull him even though he had
56, actually.
56. Oh, okay, sorry. I'm sorry, Chad. I'm sorry that I didn't catch your 56 throws.
I think I said 52 before as well.
Yeah, I think, yeah. Well, anyways. Nevertheless, I would love to take somebody in Ottawa, but we'll talk about Ottawa now. What do you got over on that Ottawa side?
Well, I'm not going to go the direction of Drew Brown coming off of the injury. The inconsistency. Hasn't thrown a ton of touchdown passes this year. He's only got 12 on the season, which is, 10 on the season in 12 games. That's not efficient enough from a quarterback for me. He doesn't run at all either, really. Kalen LeBourne is interesting to me. He's averaging 5.2 targets per game. Toronto does shut down the rushing game, so I'm not expecting a high rushing total from him. I could see something in the 40 to 50 yards only there, but if he gets some work through the air, he's averaging 5 targets a game. Toronto gives up 4.3 to running backs, so there could be a play there as a cheaper value play at a decent price on LeBourne. If you need that in order to do interesting things with your lineup, it's $5,000. Ottawa's receivers, though, even though they haven't been scoring touchdowns, there's still 2 guys there that have decent matchups that have just been unreal, consistent workload in fantasy. Justin Hardy is healthy. He missed last game. He's available. Sounds like he should be back in the lineup. He had 3 straight games over 100 yards, and he's averaged 20.9 fantasy points in his last 3 games. He's arguably the fantasy MVP of this season, as we briefly lost Adam. We'll wait for him to come back, but I'll keep talking in the meantime. Justin Hardy, he's been fantastic this year. He's up there in the CFL receiving leaders this year. Welcome back, Adam. Did you click the wrong button again?
No, this time here, just all of a sudden went blank. And I was like, well, this is cool. Anyway.
Well, we're happy to have you back. I was just talking about Justin Hardy, 1,241 yards in 15 games. Can't ask for much of a better season from him. He's a clutch play, as always. And Khalil Pimpleton has one of the most insane target shares I've seen from a rookie receiver who I knew nothing about coming into the year that I've ever seen. Last week, 12 targets. In the 4 games before that, 9, 11, 9, and 8 targets in those games. He's averaging 9.7 a game, and I keep waiting for it to fall. Drew Brown is back, or Jeremiah Mazzoli's in, or all of these other receivers are back. No, Pimpleton's going to continue getting targets, and he has 15-plus points in 4 of 6 career games. What a start for the rookie, and I wish we would have seen a full season of him. Him and Shamar Bridges have definitely been something special in terms of rookie receivers. So, I like them both, Hardy and Pimpleton, potentially as fantasy plays this week. What about you on the Ottawa side?
Well, those 2 I've got. I mean, Justin Hardy was probably one of my biggest reasons I won private fantasy this year, namely taking him as a bonus pick at the end, which was an insane thing. Anyways.
Garbage, I tell you. Garbage.
Yeah. I can't. You took Tevin Jones, and he was the number 6 rated receiver in the whole league, or in the whole league at one time.
Oh, Tevin Jones! Hey, he turned out not too bad.
He wasn't bad. Honestly, went to Edmonton. He had a good career. He had a good season. Anyway,
receiver 23 on the season, despite missing a ton of games. But that's not 6th.
But you're right. Khalil Pimpleton has had a great season for a rookie. Justin Hardy's had a great season for the Red Blacks. But another guy that I really do like, and I would like to have him on my fantasy roster this week, is Kalan Laybourne. I think Laybourne's going to be a good pickup. Running back, he seems to have good yardage against the Argonauts overall. Has been pretty strong since ever taking over for Armstead when he got shipped off. And, he just got shipped off. He didn't get traded. But nevertheless, I think Laybourne's going to be a good running back for years to come. And I think he'll do something against Toronto this week. So we'll go with that.
We haven't talked defense as much, but Toronto's defense is intriguing to me. I kind of vote for whoever's playing Ottawa these days, based on, again, not scoring more than 16 points in their last 3 games and seemingly having no offensive mojo. So I think Toronto's one of my lead defensive plays of the week as well. Would you take the shot on the Ottawa defense again, doing what they did to Kelly last time? I think you had them.
I had them that time, but that was just dumb luck because honestly, most times when I do defenses, it's pick my whole team, and then whatever money I got left, okay, fine, I'll take that defense. And for some reason, I took Ottawa's that week. Would I take them again to do this against Toronto? No. So, yeah, I don't know. Toronto's not a bad defense. I think we're going to talk about one more that I'm more interested in, though, this week. So we'll go with them later on.
Sounds good. Richard here in the chat saying, welcome back, Adam. Hope the harvesting is back on track after, I think, a couple of mishaps with the with some of the equipment there. And is Chad Kelly a must dress? Yes, we did just briefly talk about Kelly a bit ago. I think he is one of the strongest quarterback options of the week for sure. Betting picks, Toronto -4.5. They like the -4.5 lines this week, it seems. Over under 49.5. Trey is taking Toronto at -4.5. I'm going to do the same. I don't know. Neither of these teams. Do I have to pick one of them?
The fans win.
Can I pick the refs?
Ben Major, you win.
Ben Major, you win. I will take Toronto because Ottawa, I rattled it off, 10+ point losses in their last 4 games there. They seem less on track, and Liram Haralahu can kick enough field goals to get a 4.5 point spread here. So I'll go Toronto -4.5 as well. And over under 49.5. I'm going to go under on that one as well because both teams are slow to score touchdowns lately.
I'm going to go with the Argonauts just because I think Ottawa's stumbling really badly right now. Both of these teams are, to be honest with you, a little bit. But I think Toronto's stumbling a little less than Ottawa. Give me the Argonauts, and I'm going to change one thing. I'll take the over on this game. Defenses can be on the field for a long time in this one. And I could see the Argonauts definitely getting a few points, and especially if Polk gets in there early. And again, Ottawa's secondary, I don't know what it is with Ottawa right now. I don't feel like they're kind of feeling like they're almost helpless, and I don't know why. I hate to say it like that, but something really doesn't feel right with Ottawa. So I'm going to go with the over. I'll go with Toronto, and we'll go with that.
Also of note, is home field advantage a thing? Trey told us so at 9:37 p.m. Central Time a couple of weeks ago. I noted down the timestamp on that one right before he was all in on the Bombers on the home field advantage before they played the terrible game against the Argos this week. So that didn't go as planned. He may never say it again, but I agree with what he said at that time. It is a thing. The Argos are 6-2 at home. The Red Blacks are 2-6 on the road, and they are on the road this week. So I'm a little more confident in the Argos pick on this one here. Let's get into our final game of the week, which is I think most intriguing storyline of the week, the BC Lions hosting the Montreal Alouettes. Neither of these teams have too much to play for here. BC can't catch Saskatchewan. They are firmly in third place, by my understanding, here in the West Division. This is their final game before the playoffs. Montreal is firmly in first in the East. And the big storyline here is Vernon Adams Jr. is getting the start for the BC Lions after Nathan Rourke has struggled for a number of weeks in a row now. And on the other side, Montreal continuing to give Cody Fajardo a little time off with the new family or the coming family. I don't know if we've gotten an announcement either way yet. We know they were expecting a child, but I don't think we've had a confirmed delivery yet. But Davis Alexander getting the start on the other side. So quarterback heavy talk continues here. It's the storyline in every game this week. What do you think? VA getting the start here for the Lions. Nathan Rourke on the bench.
You know what? I think they got two very good quarterbacks in BC. I know Farhan put on the Logie, and TSN put down Nathan Rourke is still working hard and is getting ready for whatever he gets the call. And I agree with him. I think he's a great quarterback, and I think he's going to be a very good one in this league. I think, you know what? It's very tough, and I've said this before, very tough to come in, during a Labor Day weekend, try to learn the CFL game again, and get ready to go and try to be going right away. And Nathan Rourke was raced into I don't know if it's a tough situation, but you knew you wanted to see Nathan Rourke. He was the guy that's drawing in the crowd. People wanted to see what he's got. And I think BC just kind of went with it. And Vernon Adams was hurt. So don't make no doubts about it. Vernon Adams was injured. This being said, I think Vernon Adams was the quarterback that was going to win him a Grey Cup if it was going to be anything this year. And I'm glad to see now maybe that Rick Campbell has been softened up his mind and gone in and put Vernon Adams in for these last game, because I think that Vernon Adams is going to be the quarterback running out of the tunnel in Winnipeg or Saskatchewan come November the 2nd. So I don't know which I don't know why, but I think Vernon Adams just has that fire in his belly, and at the beginning of the year he showed it quite often that he could be a very, very good quarterback in this league. And like I said, honestly, if he would have stuck in here the whole season, let's say Nathan Rourke didn't come back, Vernon Adams might be the guy looking at the MOP spot in the West. He was playing really good football for a while there. And you know what? Injuries happen. Things happen. I think Nathan Rourke is the quarterback of the future. I really do. But you know what? This is still a time that you need to have, and you're hosting a Grey Cup. You got to do something to quell the kind of doubters out there. Is it just the quarterback that's the issue in BC? No. I think their offensive line is got a lot to do with what the problems are in BC right now. I don't think Nathan Rourke is the problem. I think that offensive line is a big problem in BC. They seem to be able to open up gaps for William Stanback when they need to, but yet protection wise, Nathan Rourke's been running. VA was running a little bit, but VA is a more mobile quarterback, I believe.
I don't know. I think it's a wash between.
Yeah, it's practically the same quarterback. One's got 12 on and one's got a different number on. So, like I said, I think it's pretty well a wash. Maybe just a different experience. Again, Vernon Adams has been just in the CFL game for the whole season, and he was the one that took the training camp. So, you know what? I like the move. I will never complain about it. I think it's a good idea. And always, the backup quarterback is always the best quarterback in the room. Always, no matter what.
To me, the talent is equal. Like, it doesn't matter which one you put in. People saying, "Oh, if VA played all this time, where would BC be?" Talent-wise, I don't know if it's any different than Rourke. I think they're both fantastic quarterbacks. The biggest key to me is the energy level of the two right now. And Vernon Adams is the person of the year in the CFL, also up there, at least in that category. Person of the decade. This is a guy who has bounced around from team to team, been stripped of opportunity here and there, and has been nothing but class. Like, if you look at him in the locker room and everything he said and throughout the weeks, like, nothing but class when you're having that type of season. And I know you get injured, but you have this, you don't get your job back after injury. That is insanely difficult, and he's handled it that way. And I saw a video circulating on X, from the huddle from the BC Lions before the game or at halftime. And it's Vernon Adams as the backup quarterback in there, getting the team amped up and ready to go out and play while Nathan Rourke is kind of standing there on the side. And you want your starter to be that kind of leader in there. I think when we talk about energy level, maybe this is a hot take, but I think Nathan Rourke's just tired. This has been a long year for Nathan Rourke when he bounced around between 4 or 5 different teams in the NFL in the past year. Then he comes over to the CFL and we say, oh, he's been resting because he hasn't been out on the field playing, that wear and tear on the body. I'm talking more the mental wear and tear of you've had to move 5 times in a year. You've had to go find new housing 5 times in a year, find a new location to live, pack up, move your things, however much you do at each of those. I assume you don't move everything every time you sign somewhere in the NFL until you know it's there. But we're talking about moving locations, learning different playbooks. You've now different plays from 5 different playbooks in your head over the last little while. the energy level from him just doesn't seem there right now. And I think he's the quarterback for the long term. But much like you said, I think Vernon Adams does have the energy and maybe a little extra fire under him after being on the bench. That is exactly what you need right now. And this week is the time to play him and see if he can deliver a better performance. And if so, you start him in the playoffs. And I think that's the right call to make here with Vernon Adams. But we also have to remember he had 2 terrible games before he went for injury as well. So it's not that Nathan Rourke coming in ruined this Lions offense. They struggled before that already and haven't been the same since that. I feel like that game against Winnipeg, that shutout, kind of just broke the Lions, and maybe they were already starting to break before then, but I feel like that just purely broke the team, and they haven't looked the same purely since then. So I think it's the right call for now, but Rourke is obviously still your guy for the future. Montreal, they've been firmly sitting in the first in the East. They've got 12-3-1 record. Next best is the Argos at 9-7. They have 2 games left now. What are you doing down the stretch here if you're Montreal? It's the age-old question of rest versus rust. You know you're getting that first-round bye, so how are you handling these last couple of games?
I think if I was Jason Moss right now, what I'd be doing is essentially I'd be doing what he's doing. He's playing Davis Alexander. For the most part, he's playing good football, so I think you keep him in there, playing with the first-team offense, essentially. I don't think there's really much changes that I've seen in there. Same thing with the defense. I haven't seen any real guys resting or anything, really, and I like it because, you know what? Yes, I've seen teams like Calgary. I remember one time, I think it was Titus Wall, and they had somebody else last game of the season get injured. And Calgary fans were irate saying, why were these guys in there? But you got to play your guys. It's football's a day. You can get injured at any time in football, but your guys can also get very rusty. And we've seen that over the years as well. See Toronto last year when they got absolutely spanked by the Montreal Alouettes. So, you know what? I don't mind what Jason Moss is doing. I would recommend that Cody Fajardo gets a half next week at least. I mean, I would love him to see the whole game. And
I would kind of almost give him the whole game, to be honest.
I don't know about the whole game, but I mean, depends what the score is, I guess, right? And depends how the game's going. If Winnipeg is throwing haymakers and launching at players, and it's a hard and heavy hitting game, and people are going to possibly get hurt, yeah, I'd pull Fajardo out. Just you don't need him hurt, but you got to give him some reps, I think, just to get him going and make sure that he's ready for whatever's coming, right? Because you can treat next week as your last game, and then just treat the bye as an actual bye week. So, but that being said, you got to go and play him a little bit. You got to get him some reps so he knows what he's doing when he gets into that East Final against, if it's Toronto or Montreal or Ottawa. So I think, yeah, most part Jason Moss has been doing this right, though. He hasn't really sat a lot of guys. He hasn't really raced off guys out of the field. Nobody's sitting off of it. I mean, Austin Mack came back last week. I think he still needs a game or two just to get ready. And
he looked good, though.
Yeah, he did look good. Oh, yeah. And I mean, even then, you want to also see, though, what Davis Alexander has. I mean, he seems like a very good quarterback. And is he maybe the future of Montreal after Fajardo's done? Fajardo's contract's up this year again.
I think he's the future of somebody, but I don't know. I don't know if it's Montreal necessarily. But this is what I think playing Alexander this week is right. And then I would almost feel comfortable playing Fajardo the full game next week to get him back into the rhythm because, you know, he's had up and down games as well. In his last 4 starts, they lost by 14, tied, won by 12, and then lost by 6 to the Argos. So I kind of want to get him back into the rhythm. Next week against a Winnipeg team that has everything to play for, you know, that's a little bit of everybody talking about the most likely Grey Cup matchup, Winnipeg-Montreal, you know, maybe send a message to them a little bit late in the season. And I think another start under his belt, if Fajardo pulls a Kevin Glenn and gets injured in the season finale there, it's fine. Like, Davis Alexander is good. Alexander, courtesy of our friends at the Alouettes Flight Deck who posted this on X earlier today, Davis Alexander has started and won 4 games in 2024, the only quarterback in Montreal history to ever win his first 4 career starts for them. He's looked good, and he should get an opportunity elsewhere. That's definitely going to be a big focus of our offseason is where do all the puzzle pieces move at quarterback, and I hope he gets a chance somewhere. And somebody takes a look at him. This is a guy that was on the 3rd, 4th string for Montreal a couple of years ago and has really worked his way up the depth chart and bought his time a little bit and now gets a chance to shine, and he will again this week against the Lions after only 1 practice this week, as Richard pointed out in the chat, because they did play on Monday. The game here is on Saturday, so a short week definitely for Montreal here. And yeah, let's give Davis Alexander another chance to show what he can do.
Absolutely,
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Should we talk fantasy on this game? Which side do you want to go to first? Should we go BC or Montreal?
Well, let's go BC Lions, and I'll bring up one guy that I definitely will be really thinking about on my fantasy chart. It's William Stanback. Last game that he played against the BC Lions, I believe over 100 yards, plenty of carries, I think maybe 26.
20 carries, which is
20 carries.
It's up there as one of the highest workloads of any running back this season.
Yeah, so 20 carries, over 100 yards rushing. He's playing his former team. He wants to send a message saying, hey, you should have maybe kept me again. And he's in, this game is in BC. So, I mean, he wants to show what's going on. So I could see, honestly, William Stanback having a great game. On the receiving side of BC, you know what? They got a plethora of offense, but it just doesn't know who's going to get the ball at what time. Is it going to be Jovan Katoy? He seems to always get some odd yards always out there. I think
he's out with an injury.
He is still out? Okay,
yeah.
So I better give him up. The other one also could be Justin McInnes. I mean, he's had a great season as well and seems to be relied on for those big catches when they need it. Another guy that you can maybe look at is Alexander Hollins. He's going to probably get a lot of targets just to make sure that he's ready to go for the playoffs because he's just coming back from injury, I believe. Keon Hatcher hasn't had a whole lot of success so far this season. Maybe he's a guy that needs to get going as well. And then there's Aberhart. There's all sorts of other ones in there for BC that I'm not thinking of right at the moment. But honestly, BC's just got a lot of choices. And when you got a lot of choices, it's very hard to take one. And so I'm going to take none, actually, of the receivers after all that talk for the BC Lions. And quarterback, you know what? I don't know if Vernon Adams is going to be in there for the whole game or they're going to. You know what? Rick Campbell seems to like to play one quarterback for the whole game. So probably it'll be VA the whole time. But I don't know. Honestly, they might switch halfway through or something happens and they got to go back to Nathan Rourke. Or all of a sudden they were actually even looking at Bryce the other game there in Saskatchewan. I mean, they might go with him all of a sudden and say, you know what, we're going to go with Bryce. So I don't know what's going to happen in BC for quarterback. And again, when you're not sure what you're going to do, you don't do it. Another comment in the chat there from Richard saying, thoughts on David Mackey for a value play? I don't mind it. I don't know if I do it.
He's $5,800. I think I would find other options. If you're talking about a value play from the standpoint if he gets the short yardage work and might punch in a couple of touchdowns, that's too expensive for that. If you're talking about a value play in terms of, maybe they rest William Stanback a little bit before the playoffs, I think newly acquired Jeshurun Antwi gets the carries in that case, not David Mackey. So I would lean away from him there on the value play. I'm iffy on Stanback. Yes, huge total last game. Montreal does give up a lot of carry or a lot of rushing yards to running backs, obviously, as well. So there is a decent floor there. I don't know about his usage with VA at the helm as much as with Rourke at the helm. Early in the season, it was hit and miss. Some games it was 18 points. Next couple games it was 5 points you were getting from William Stanback. So he's up there in consideration for me. I think he'll get a decent workload as well. I do have him as a possible running back play, but maybe not my top one of the week. I mean, we know what my top one of the week is. It's Greg Bell. We've talked about it. Vernon Adams, before his injury, averaged 21 fantasy points a game, had 5 starts with over 330 passing yards and multiple touchdowns. He was a fantasy league winner. That was when I had hope in our draft league early this season, was when VA was on a roll. But the question mark is, can they get the offense turned around here? It's a tough matchup. Montreal allows 10 fantasy points a game to starting quarterbacks only. And is this the week that's going to break? I don't know. Part of me's tempted to play him. If I didn't have championships on the line this week, I think I would wholeheartedly just want to put VA out there because I'm rooting for him to get it turned around here. But I do have those question marks. And you raise a good point. I don't know if we see Rourke necessarily go back out there, but if Adams lights it up and say the first 3 quarters, do they say, okay, that's good enough, you're a starter in the playoffs, here you go, Chase Bryce for the final quarter of this game? Or do they say, no, full throttle till the end, keep that momentum going? I don't know. But with Vernon Adams back in play here, I think the receivers, I would consider revisiting some of them. Again, tough matchups against Montreal. Justin McInnis, in his first 8 games of the year with Vernon Adams, had 780 yards and 6 touchdowns, and has hardly matched that since then. So they clearly had the best chemistry. But Alexander Hollins and Keon Hatcher both have better matchups than him, but a lot more risk involved. Hollins has had 10 plus fantasy points once in his last 9 games, which is just disgusting for a player that was such a peak at the top of the league early on in the season. But he had his best success with Vernon Adams. So if they're going to get him on a roll, maybe this is how they do it this week. That's the consideration plays on the BC side. What do you got for Montreal?
Actually, I've got Montreal's defense, and the reason being is I think that this offensive line, and I've said it before, they give up a lot of pressure into the backfield. And I don't care if it's Vernon Adams or Nathan Rourke. I think they're going to have trouble keeping him out of there. Beverette's been hot this year. Sutton has been running in and getting some sacks lately, I've seen. And picks as well. Wesley Sutton's done very well at that. So I could see that this Montreal team wreaks havoc on the BC Lions. So I think there's a good chance that they could maybe get a few more points than, 0. So I'm going to go with the Montreal Alouettes defense. Player-wise, there's really not a lot that I'm looking at. Walter Fletcher is always an interesting play just because once in a while he is, again, a running back, and sometimes he's also a receiver. So it's kind of cool that you could probably go with both on his. But I don't know if he's really an option for this week. Davis Alexander wouldn't be a bad quarterback to use this week. But again, this team is playing for the pride and for beating a team, or trying to just beat a team for momentum. So I don't know really which way this is going to go, and it's very hard to choose teams that are just playing for momentum. So I don't know what to say on this. Austin Mack might be an option as well in the receiving side of things, just because he had a very good week last week, and I think this week he's going to have a very good week as well against the BC Lions. So those are kind of what I'm thinking, but again, I can only choose so many guys. They don't let you choose over. So yeah, might go with Austin Mack for sure. He's an option. And then I definitely will be going with the Montreal defense.
Yeah, Montreal defense as well. You kind of wonder in order to try to get back on track, does BC try to force it a little bit? Does Vernon Adams try to force some of those throws? He is known for, at times throughout his career, trying to make the big play, and it ended up in an interception there. The Walter Fletcher target watch continues. We haven't looked at this in a while. Where do you think he sits in the league in targets currently?
Give me number 7.
Okay, no, not quite that high. He is 21st in the league in targets, 81 targets on the season for running back Walter Fletcher. 67 catches, 641 receiving yards to 711 on the ground. I really want to see him pass it. And I think he is in line for that this week, potentially, to have a big game through the air. He has 10 plus fantasy points in 9 of his last 10 games. He doesn't deliver you those 20-point performances very often, but I think he's a good floor play. In his last 6 games, his highest is 17. But hey, you're going to get some points for sure out of Walter Fletcher. BC gives up the most receiving yards to running backs in the league at 34.4, which is right up Fletcher's alley because he does do most of his work through the air. So I really like that play as an option this week. You talked about Austin Mack, 17 targets in the 2 games he's played. He was the wide receiver 8 last week. So yeah, he seems to be on a comeback here from his injury. He does have one of the worst positional matchups for his team though this week. Cole Speaker has the better matchup. His matchup is really good, but he has zero chemistry with Davis Alexander. It seems Cole Speaker. He's great with Fajardo, but he's averaged 5 points a game in 4 starts with Speaker, and that's not enough for me, despite the matchup. So. That is definitely something to consider there. But Davis Alexander is one of my top quarterback considerations. He's averaged 19 points in his 4 starts. It's a great matchup against the Lions. They give up the second most passing touchdowns in the CFL. They give up they get the second least number of interceptions. They give up rushing yards, etc. So I kind of lean Davis Alexander as an option. He's averaged 30 rushing yards in 4 starts and 2 straight starts with a TD. So if you want a cheaper option, I think he's still a decent price. And of course, check the depth chart, but we're pretty sure he's starting this week and is going to be an available play for you. And our final betting picks of the week, the BC Lions, 2-point favorites at home over the Alouettes. A little shocking of a line to me, actually, in this one with the, I know they get the home field 3-point spread, but they have looked a lot less good than Montreal has recently. Which way are you leaning on this one?
I want to say the home team. I really do. But you know what? I don't think I have very much confidence in the BC Lions offensive line right at the moment. And I think that's going to hurt them in the end. So I would like to see them win their last game of the regular season at home. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm going to go with the Alouettes, and I will go on the over on this game because, you know what, both teams want to have a win here. They got momentum again. Montreal wants to say this is where we want to be in 4 weeks, I guess, over in BC. And BC is looking to get some momentum to get back into BC as well. So I think it could be a high-scoring game, but I think it's mostly going to be on the Montreal side of the football. So give me the over. Give me the Montreal Alouettes.
Trey took BC -2, probably believing in the VA turnaround here, I would imagine. I think he's going to turn it around, but I still like Montreal more because I like what Davis Alexander has done with that team. So I'm going to give Montreal +2 as well, but I'll agree with you on taking the over. 48.5 is a bit of a lower line, and I think they could get some mojo going here. With both of these offenses in this game. Richard in the chat, they've won every game I've been to this year, and I'll be attending, so they better bring home the win. Hey, good luck charm in the stands. Watch the betting lines tip in more heavily in BC's favor now.
Negative 15, somewhere there, yeah.
Yeah, we know Vegas is watching this show.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure. 100%. But yeah, I will take Montreal and the over on this one as well. And that does it for our 3 games this week as we get into wrapping things up here. Anything else you want to talk about before we do the usual wrap-up spiel, Adam?
I am so sorry for any fans of the New Orleans Saints. That's all I can say. I am so sorry.
They have nobody left. There's nobody left on that team. Everybody's injured.
No, I mean, I probably could probably make it out to the defensive line or the offensive line.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, there's nobody. It's just they're decimated. And I mean, like I said, I'm sure that there's injury lawyers calling the New Orleans Saints right now.
I'll line up at receiver. I think I could play receiver. I'll never have to get tackled if I never get the ball. So,
Problem is, you might get the ball there.
oh shoot! Oh run!
That's the point. You're supposed to run. Yes.
Oh yeah. Shoot! Why didn't I think of that? Oh, wait, I did.
Brilliant. I know. Follow me for all your rest of your football strategies.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Should I start my football career now? Should I start training tomorrow and see if I can make a team?
That would be absolutely hilarious.
Is this how we go viral? We were talking beforehand about going. Yeah, is this how we go viral? Is Ryan's training montage?
Well, we probably ain't gonna make the CFL via social influencers, so we may as well try just making the teams.
Yeah, our social media presence is dead. But anyways, you can follow us on social media at CF Countdown Pod on X or Facebook.com/CF Countdown Pod. You can find all the fun things like Trey's power rankings there and links to the episodes. And that's pretty much it right now. But they're there. You can check out all the other great shows from around the Canadian Football Podcast Network, as well at CF Pod Network on Twitter, the Alternative Football Network at the official AFN on Twitter, or alternativefootballnetwork.com. See everything going on with all of those other great shows there as well. We'll be back again next week with our Week 21 preview, our final week of the season. That's going to be even more fun for fantasy, but at least we'll have meaningful football games to talk about. Again, a couple of them even in that one, so that should be fun. You can find me on Twitter at CooperTrooper42. Mike's at Mike Garrell. Trey is at Trey MB Harness right now, I believe. Adam, what do you all got going on these days?
You can find me at Adam Stewart 1. Most times I'm going to be probably celebrating my coronation of the Private Fantasy League champion here next week, so be tuned for that one. I'm sure that I think Ryan has to knight me or something like that. I think it's all
Is it May yet? I want redemption.
Well, we know Ryan's team for next year. It's hashtag I want redemption. So anyways, you can follow me at Adam Stewart 1. I promise I won't brag too much about winning one thing for once. I've got farm stuff on there. I'll probably have some pictures of rink stuff going on. Lots of things going on right now. And hey, I am going to the playoff game in Saskatchewan, whether it's on the West Final or the West Semifinal. It'll probably be the West Final. We all know that already because the CFL is scripted just like the NFL, right?
Oh,
anyways,
yeah, for sure.
Without a doubt. But yeah, I'll give you some highlights. I'll probably send some pictures up on there too. Give me a follow at Adam Stewart 1 if you want.
Right on. Is this the point of the year now that we have crowned you victorious that I can go and complain that the only reason you won is because as a gag I dropped $100 on Bo Levi Mitchell?
I mean, you could try, but I mean that was your own doing. I mean,
and honestly, that's part of why I did it at the time was so I could jokingly have the asterisk, but I don't think it would have made a difference. I think there were.
And to be honest, I think that trade with Mike, I think that pretty much sealed it right then and there. As soon as I got Brady Oliveira and Tim White on the same trade for Zach Colaros and Walter Fletcher, I think it was Fletcher I traded him. Anyways,
and now I have Walter Fletcher, but yeah. Anyways, props to you once again. Good season. I'll give you your flowers. You deserve it. And I can't wait till May. Like, forget the rest of this season. I'm prepping for May.
He goes wins the other two fantasy leagues, and then you know what? I don't care about any of those. I want the private one. The heck with
I want the one where zero money and a non-existent trophy.
You know what the funny part is? This is the private league that Ryan has made on his own. It's pretty much his baby, and I'm taking it away from him.
Yeah, there you go. It's okay. Somebody else has to win. We have to keep it competitive so that people keep coming back.
Rules are totally changing next year. I can see it already.
Oh, yes. Yeah, exactly. We'll look forward to the Board of Governor meeting in the off season. Maybe we'll stream it. That would be interesting. Discord. Check out the Discord. Links in the episode description for you to join there. CFL Fantasy Talk, CFL Talk in general, game day talk threads for each of the games, all that fun stuff. Thanks for tuning in, joining us here tonight. Whatever podcast platform you are listening on, we appreciate it if you do all the fun things such as like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, share the show with your friends, help us grow the show. We always appreciate that. On behalf of Adam, I'm Ryan saying thank you for listening. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.